Welcome to the Powering Progress podcast. And this is a real focus and discussion around how we power the progress of underrepresented talent in organizations across industries. My name is Lanray Salola. I am CEO and founder of Inner Ambitions. And at Inner Ambitions, we're focused at helping teams, organizations, individuals maximize their skills, their insights and capabilities, and create environments where everyone really can thrive. And on the Powering Progress podcast, we'll be talking to an array of speakers, leaders, individuals navigating their careers to really discuss this important topic of underrepresented talent and the impact that needs to happen to ensure that progress is made and leadership is as diverse as it can be. Today, really excited to have Faith Locken as our guest today. Faith is a keynote speaker, TEDx speaker, and founder and CEO of the We Rise Group, an award-winning inclusive members club and community for professionals, entrepreneurs, and creatives. Faith, welcome. Great to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Lanray. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure. I've done a lot of work with you over the years and have seen the great work that you've done with individuals trying to navigate their career. So I think you're a perfect person to be able to talk about this subject and topic. Before we get into some of that, really interested to get your thoughts on what does powering progress of underrepresented talent mean to you?
Well, to me, I think it's two main things, Lanray. It's one, supporting our community. And by supporting our community, I mean us ourselves. So those who are from underrepresented backgrounds, supporting each other. And then also actually holding organizations or institutions accountable. So where they say they're trying to diversify, hold them accountable, make sure that they're actually doing what they say they're going to do.
Yeah, I like that. I like how you talk about real action, because sometimes it's easy to say we're going to do this, we're going to do that, but what it comes down to, what I'm hearing from you, is the action that we actually take.
Correct. And I think we'll probably get into it, but we are seeing certainly across the pond in the US that kind of almost backtracking on DE&I efforts, so diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it's sad to see, and I hope that it doesn't translate over here in the UK. Just from my line of work, I am seeing that there is less, I guess, money in the pot or budget for DE&I initiatives, but at the moment I charter that to sort of the macroeconomic situation where we're at in terms of the economy, rather than businesses take an active decision to not invest in and support their underrepresented talent.
Yeah, with you on that. That you can definitely kind of feel kind of a sea change, if you like, and over the coming months. It's going to be interesting to see where that goes. And you've spent a decade plus working in the real estate industry. Be great just to hear some of your experience, particularly around career progression from your time in the industry there.
Sure. I guess for context to those listening, I started my corporate career working for a large real estate agency, a global real estate firm, and I trained as a commercial surveyor, and I became chartered. So I am still to this day actually a member of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. So when I started out in the industry, I didn't actually do a real estate related degree. My kind of journey in was unconventional. I had studied languages at university, but I always knew that I wanted to go into property. So I did various internships and just kind of hustled my way into this role. I mean, I've got a story to tell on how I ended up landing the role, but for the sake of time, I won't go into it. But I found that when I joined as a graduate at that firm at that time in 2015, I was the only Black graduate in a cohort of 75 graduates UK wide. And to be honest, I wasn't surprised, because due to my kind of educational background, I was used to being the only or one of the few people of sort of minority ethnic backgrounds in a space. And when I started off, the grad scheme was amazing. There was so much support from the firm, from everyone within the firm. But I did begin to notice as I kind of climbed the career ladder, and when I reached that kind of the mid level of my career, so sort of 5+ years into working, that I noticed myself and my peers, there was kind of almost like a stagnation, not for want of trying, not for lack of merit. We were all, technically savvy, but I was seeing our kind of non, how would I praise it? I mean, let's say our white counterparts being excelled through the business, and it was looking like it was because of who they knew, and the network that they had cultivated for themselves. Not trying to detract from their capabilities, but it was quite obvious that there was a degree of, I guess you could call it nepotism, or just, I guess, preference when it came to putting people forward for promotions. On the ground when working, and I and some of my other peers experienced discrimination. In some instances it was outright discrimination, so use of terms like the N-word, and in other instances much more subtle, so you might call them sort of microaggressions, and just that kind of constant feeling of not kind of being included. Yeah, it was an interesting experience. And I think real estate as an industry is probably one of the least diverse. And I'm talking of all characteristics, protected characteristics. So, starting with gender, we are improving from a gender balance perspective, but we're definitely not where we could be. And then you kind of just go down from there. So there were times where, I would turn up. So I was, as an example, I was buying and selling. So I was doing investment, buying and selling like large office buildings, and buildings in the city. And I remember sort of going to carry out viewings on sites. And I'm talking, these are sites that are like millions of pounds. And I turn up to the site, and the kind of look that I would get from the people that I was there to meet was almost one of surprise. That surprise of, oh, your faith. And it was never kind of explicitly said, but I guess it was implied in a way by their reaction that they didn't expect someone who looked like me to be the person that they were there to meet. And that's kind of something that I would experience on a daily basis. There'd be times I'd be going to a site that I'm selling, and I'm the person that's actually selling the building or managing the building. And then I'm being kind of asked for all forms of kind of ID and things like that, just almost more checks and balances than just a regular Joe would. So I'm kind of used to, I guess I'm used to it, and we shouldn't have to get used to it. But that was the experience that I had, which eventually led to my setting up We Rise In, and We Rise Group, I should say, and the various businesses that fall under the group.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. Because one of the things we want to do with this podcast is to support individuals who are navigating their careers and maybe facing barriers and issues and challenges, and also to make those in the position to create a culture of true inclusion, to be aware of what is still going on. So we can't ignore that these things are still being faced by colleagues, as you say, day in, day out. I've done some work in the real estate industry as well, and are well aware that there is work to be done to make it more inclusive across all levels. And how do we really create an environment where we're getting different perspectives and leaders from across the board playing a role in that? From your time, what insights could you share with either someone right now going through some challenges, or maybe a senior leader who's less aware of some of the challenges their people might be going through?
Mm. I'll start with the senior leaders. So it's so important as a senior leader, if you're running and building diverse teams, which that's the world we live in, and there's data to support the fact that diverse teams or diverse businesses generate more revenue than none. As a senior leader, you really should be taking the initiative and being curious to try to understand the backgrounds and cultural, experiences of those people in your team. And that can look like, seeking out someone in your team to potentially be a mentor to you. We do reverse mentoring programs with a lot of our senior leaders in order to tease out and to make senior leaders aware of some of the issues that underrepresented professionals face when trying to climb the career ladder. If you're an individual and you're facing these kind of issues within the workplace, I would say try to find someone who can support you, not just an ally. So you can always look to find an ally, someone who's maybe more senior in the business, has maybe gone through the same path that you've gone through, and that can support you, and be that voice for you and advocate for you when you're not there. But I also think it's important to have a support system and a community. So, are there people in your workplace that you can talk to, that you can vent to, people outside of your workplace, that can help you, particularly when you're having moments where you just feel like you just don't even want to go into work anymore? It's having that group and that support that helps you get through those moments.
Yeah, and it's more I talk and focus on progress. That point you make around support and network, they go hand in hand, really, because I've seen it so often whereby actually individuals who are stuck or going through issues or challenges, sometimes the tendency is, and we've all probably been there, we go into ourselves, we don't see any way out or people we can talk to, and that actually makes things harder. And that's not putting all the ownership on the individual going through it, but it's realizing that actually a lot of the times for a door to be opened, I've seen it in my own career as well, for a door to be opened, for things to change, it often takes support from those around us, or even sometimes further afield from us, to really make an impact and difference. Sometimes it's easy to say that, but there might be some people saying, I've got no one I trust or no one I can really connect to. Kind of what happens in those situations?
Oh, I think if you've got no one to connect to, that's where, at least for me, that's where I've found having a really strong mindset
Mm,
um is so important. For me, mindset plus my faith, and having that spiritual grounding enables me, when there isn't anyone else I can talk to, I can go internally and have that conversation with myself. Because ultimately, even if you do have people to speak to, you're the one living through the situation, so you're the one that has to show up every day, and be in your head about these things. So that's where I think having that, working on your mindset, working on how you instill kind of confidence and self-belief within yourself, working on the way you talk about yourself, and recognizing that regardless of your situation, the situation you're in isn't doesn't make you who you are,
mm,
and that you can, I guess, grow through it and go
mm.
through it.
Yeah, and it's so easy to get wrapped up in the situation and a role, and that becomes our identity. And part of this as well is acknowledging that this isn't easy. And it's not just a clicking your fingers. I remember early on in my career when things weren't going too well, and I feel hit a ceiling. It's very easy to talk about it afterwards, to be honest. Oh, I had
Yeah.
that time when I struggled, and but in the moment, it can be really hard because there is sometimes that feeling of I failed. I'm not good enough. I don't even want to, even if there is people to turn to, I don't really want to admit how much I'm struggling. And I think we probably won't go down that road today, but it's also acknowledging that the mental, emotional turmoil and this can have. And we really just want to shine a light and saying that this isn't easy. And it's why we have to have these conversations, but also look at, well, what are solutions? What are the answers to it? Um,
Mm.
I've got to admit, one of the highlights of my work over the past few years has been working with We Rise In, and the programs that you've done for individuals navigating their career in the real estate industry. I've heard some powerful stories. I've seen people come to life and come to light and share experiences. And I'd say that's a great example of the support and the network that can create real change around this. So yeah, do talk a little bit more about We Rise In, what you do, what is to come as well, because I know there's big plans. But yeah, how can this really make an impact when we talk about powering progress for underrepresented talent?
Sure. So the main reason I set up We Rise In was to address a challenge that I was facing, myself and my peers. Getting to that mid-senior level in our career, we're hitting that proverbial glass ceiling. We're looking up at senior leadership, not seeing ourselves represented in that. And so, there was the kind of, what do I do? How do I progress? And the organization I was at the time had sort of leadership programs and were running different programs to develop their internal talent. But what I was noticing were those who were underrepresented were getting seemingly passed over. They would we'd put ourselves forward to for those development programs, and we wouldn't sort of get those places. And so in my mind, I was like, well, what can I do first of all to serve our community? And watching George Floyd get murdered was very much a catalyst as well. I thought to myself, what can I do to support the community, and what would I want to see, and what would I need? I was looking out in the landscape, and I was seeing there was a lot of push for supporting underrepresented school leavers and early careers into real estate. And what we weren't seeing was that support to develop the talent once they get to that middle level. And so that's where setting up We Rise In and setting up programs, specifically mentorship program and a leadership program, to support the professionals in our network, to then inspire, elevate, and develop them into what they need to be. So if we take the leadership program, for example, we're now on our fourth cohort, and we've had the pleasure of working with you around leadership, and we have each year we take about 15 professionals. We take them through a 6-month program, and we've been able to support people into getting the promotion that they've always wanted but were struggling to get. We've supported people into career changes, where they were at was no longer working for them and they weren't sure whether to make the move. So we were able to support them in arriving at that kind of decision, and giving them the tools that they needed to then move into the next stage of their career. And it's just wonderful to see. I had a lady, this was 2 years ago now, who came onto the leadership program, had been working public sector for 15 plus years. She was sort of early 40s, I'd say. So she'd been working quite a long time, and, she was a mother and had a family. And from what I understood, she was a single mother, and working in public sector, your salary to a degree is sometimes capped and dictated by how much money, the local authority receives. And so she had wanted to consider moving over to the private sector, but was to a degree a bit nervous because she all she'd ever known was public sector, and she had this idea in her mind that the private sector would be really fast paced. She wouldn't be kind of technically capable, so on and so forth. And coming on our leadership program helped her realize that actually she was very much technically capable, and she gained the skills that she needed to, and the confidence as well, to apply to a private sector role. And I remember her calling me up like August 2023. And I was like, Faith, I got the job. I was like, what job? I didn't even know she was applying. She's like, Faith, I got the job. I applied to this private sector role and I've got it. And it's essentially doubled her income. She's like, I've never earned this much money in my entire life. And now I'm able to provide for my family in a way that I've never been able to. And I can actually start to make moves towards creating generational wealth. And that to me is the reason why We Rise In and our community exists, because what we're doing, whilst on the surface we're doing all these development programs and supporting individuals, but the idea is that the impact that we have will be benefited future generations will benefit from it. So that's like a real example as to the work that we're doing having a direct impact on someone's life, and then the lives of their, their children and generations to come. And so yeah, that's why we've set it up. What we our kind of plans now. So we'll continue to run We Rise In, which is the professional training and development arm of the business. But the feedback we're getting from our community, which we've grown now from 0 to just over 2,000 Black professionals, entrepreneurs, and creatives. So what started as a focus in real estate industry has now widened and broadened to include all different industries. We're getting a lot of entrepreneurs in our network now, people who were corporates and have now moved to be entrepreneurs, and we're supporting them through our program. So we do business webinars and seminars. We run workshops and stuff to help people making that transition. We also have a lot of events as well throughout the year. The feedback we get from our network is that they love the ability to network with people that look like them. They come to an event of ours and they say, this is the first time I've been in a professional setting where I'm the majority for once. And so we wanted to be able to replicate that on an ongoing basis. So the intention now is to actually acquire our own space where we can run effectively a members club. So it'll be an inclusive members club, so open to all, but our focus will continue to be to support professionals, entrepreneurs, and creators from mixed heritage and Black backgrounds.
That's fantastic, and it shows even within this the progression of yourself. And this is the wonderful thing about this is when we progress ourselves and navigate through some of the challenges and have that big dream, how it helps the progression of others. That story of the lady who's kind of doubled her salary, for example, just shows one story. And I know there's many stories of many individuals have kind of transformed their careers through that work. And then what you're saying is that's not enough. Actually, there's more, because even though there's been progress and success, and this is what's really powerful as well, this is not just about getting to the next step. This is not just about being just above average. This is about really thriving. This is about shaping the future of leaders, because we're losing out if these individuals, if these groups don't have these opportunities, don't enter into these environments that you're talking about. How do you feel the members club will accelerate progression for the individuals that you're targeting?
So there is I don't know if it's an African proverb. I always heard that Nelson Mandela was the one that said it. But anyway, regardless of who said it, it's a phrase or a quote that I live by, which is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And the way that I see our communities and the way our communities have always existed is with the mentality of like the village mindset, that together as a community we can support and uplift each other and moving forward. So the intention with the members club is to, from a We Rise group perspective, we are just facilitating a space for these connections and these collaborations to take place. And so we want to support, create that space where people can come in, they can be authentically themselves. Because, there are members clubs that exist all over the place. There are co-working spaces that exist, but there's not many that you can walk in and see yourself, within the makeup of the space, in the design of the space, in the artwork on the walls, in, the people that are there, and the food that's being served. Name me a space in the city of London that's like, a co-working space or a members club that serves jollof rice. If you're working in town and you want something cultural, we're kind of lacking. And so what I see the members club space is a place that can facilitate these collaborations. We want the members in our networks who are creatives that might be looking for professionals to support them with developing their business. We've had it where, so given, let's take real estate, for example. We've had creatives in our network who once they're earning a certain amount of money, they might want to buy a property or they might want to invest in property, and they're thinking, who do I connect with? Who do I contact? Well, we've got loads of real estate professionals in our network. Why don't you connect together and see what work we can do together? Business owners, for example, you're always going to need an accountant. You may need a lawyer. Why not come together and work together as a community? So that's how I see us kind of really excelling and supporting each other. So a lot of the success we've had so far has been great, but I feel like it's been on an individual level. So now with the club space, it's about how do we as individuals come together and what can we give and bring and contribute into that village so that we can grow.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Earlier, we were talking about support that you need when you're struggling, but also it's clear to go further and to build on success, you also need support and network. So wherever you are, it's building that community, building that connection. And I agree, we need to see more of the We Rise In clubs, networks. Not saying it has to be the only one, the only way,
Yeah.
but we're talking about creating diverse opportunities and spaces. And yeah, I've experienced not only as a junior, but even now, and the different organizations I go to, you will walk through and you will look around, or even running leadership sessions, and you will look around and feel the lack of diversity, and there's the intangibles of that as well, just the feeling.
Yeah.
And you talked about the authenticity, being yourself, and all of these things are key if we want to really be confident, if we really want to lead and maximize our capabilities.
Can I add something else as
Yeah, go
well?
ahead.
And it's another one of the reasons why I think this space is needed. So couple years ago, a few years ago now, actually, we hosted our first leadership summit at one of our clients' offices, and the head of HR after the event came up to me. She's a white lady, and she confessed to me. She said, "Faith, that's the first time I have been the minority in the room," and that impacted her so deeply and so profoundly. We've actually continued to work with them for many years, and they're still, they're a corporate member of ours and they're a big champion of everything we do. But that is the type of change and impact that we're also trying to create with a space like this. So I think it's important to mention that whilst we will continue to really support and uplift underrepresented talent, the space we're creating is not one we're saying, white people can't come in or people from other backgrounds can't come in. What we're trying to say is we are putting our community at the forefront, and therefore in the hope that, when our allies come into the space, or other communities that are, interested in working from Rise Members Club, they can start to see and understand, oh, okay, this is how the other side have been feeling. Okay, now I know how you feel, and now I've got that level of empathy. What can I now do to actually move the needle and make that change? And I think sometimes until someone has lived or put themselves in someone else's shoes, it's really hard to kind of change their perception or to reach them and make them understand the need for inclusive spaces.
Yeah, so true. For those individuals, leaders who actually can make an impact, from your experience, what role can they play in relation to We Rise in relation to kind of progressing underrepresented talent?
I would say the easiest level, or the easiest way they can support, is by being an ally. And being an ally is listening to, understanding, hearing what underrepresented talent are needing and looking for, and trying to put something in place. The next step up from that is being a sponsor. So someone that's not only just supporting, but you're actually actively going out of your way to put things in place, or to advocate for individuals when they are not there. Um, Try to have in your mind, and I guess it's hard because as human beings, we're naturally selfish, you know. You think about yourself, you think about, we've got so many things going on in our minds. But I think as leaders, we need to lead with empathy. And in order to do that, we need to take ourselves outside of just thinking about what we need and what's important to us and start to think about, okay, what does my team need? What do the people that I'm working with need? How can I support them? We've just finished Ramadan's just ended, but during, religious festivals, are there people in your team that need that extra time off or need that, just being cognizant that someone might be going through something and therefore actually their performance at this particular point in time might be due to something, outside of work. So just, yeah, I guess leading with empathy and allowing space for grace.
Yeah, definitely. I always talk when I'm working with leaders and running sessions around inclusion. I always talk about leaders needing to show their faces, and as you spoke, that kind of came to my mind. And faces being an acronym, that the F is around. We need to have fairness for all the different people we're working with. As a leader, the A is accountability. That you play a really important role for creating equity. The C is collaboration, making sure that we're now collaborating with diverse groups, not with the same people. The E is the empathy you talked about, and the S is the sharing that you mentioned as well. That's sharing resources, that's sharing their own story, that's sharing the space for others. So the more leaders can start to show their faces in different environments, and that includes, great example, as you said earlier, that includes showing your faces when you're the minority,
Mm.
because that shows that actually I really actually want to put my face in uncomfortable situations and to start to be a part of solving whatever issues or barriers that we're facing. So it's great to hear that this is kind of moving, going forward, and having an impact. What kind of advice would you give for someone at that middle level that you talked about earlier, and maybe kind of bumping their head against a ceiling a bit? What advice would you give to them at the moment?
Probably take some time to really think about what it is that you want from your career. Do you even want to continue with your career, or do you want to change careers? Do you want to maybe take a sabbatical, give yourself, room to breathe and room to think? Do you have desires to be a business owner, pursue entrepreneurship? So these are all like questions that I think it's important to take the time to really consider. If I'm answering from a perspective of someone that wants to continue in their same career path and is hitting that kind of glass ceiling at their existing organization, I would first look to try and have conversations, maybe with your line manager, if that's someone that you feel you can talk to, or whoever in the business that you feel you can express, your concerns to. That might be someone that's higher up than your line manager. And in fact, if it can be someone that's higher up than your line manager, I would 100% suggest that, because people at that kind of decision making level can move the needle quite quickly. I have a separate story about how my whole career path has been essentially older white men advocating for me and moving the needle quickly when needed. But yeah, finding someone in your organization that you can talk to understand what you need to unlock that next level in your career. It could be that it's not you, it's the economy. Maybe they're not hiring, maybe they can't afford to give you that promotion. And in which case, at that point, you need to think relatively selfishly and think about, okay, well, they're not going to give me a promotion, not because I'm not good enough. It's just that there isn't money for it. Therefore, do I need to look out into the market and find somewhere that will pay me? So I think there's always like an honest conversation you have to have with yourself and be quite frank and recognize that we operate in a business world, So sometimes you not getting that promotion is not necessarily down to your lack of technical capability. Sometimes it's just there's just no budget for it.
Yeah, so all the being aware of all those different factors, all the different barriers that might come away, and starting to form that strategy. There needs to be a strategy. There needs to be a plan around this. And as we talked about before, having those key players to help. I was recommended a book recently around your personal kind of boardroom, and having your own kind of board around you different places for different positions. So there could be that person who's more strategic that says, actually, you are struggling. How can you kind of navigate the situation? Or you might have just someone in your team who's your emotional support because it is really hard, but you can come to them, or the person that says, well, have you thought about this? Or the problem solver, or one even gets you thinking about the risk and issues of actually taking that jump, because of course the entrepreneurship side, as you said, it is a jump. And sometimes it's about timing, as you mentioned. If you jump too quick or take too long, is that going to
Yeah.
impact your progression? And
Yeah.
the more we talk about progression, it's really clear that we're not just talking about linear progression. Progression looks so different in different ways. And it's, as you said, it's finding that space to actually work out, what does progression look like for me,
Yeah.
first and
Yeah.
foremost. And that's really important as well.
Definitely. I think it's so important because you will there's a lot of like Instagram posts where there's someone saying I accidentally got important at work, and now everyone's like, calling me, and the person's like on holiday trying to relax, and they're getting emails left, right, center. So I think you have to recognize you might be looking up and thinking, oh yeah, I'd love to be, a director or a CEO, and I want to earn X amount. But recognize with that amount, that extra earning, comes the responsibility. So you really have to ask yourself, is that something that I want for my life? I used to, not to make it too personal, but I used to date someone who was a lawyer, and I remember asking him, do you want to make partner? And he was like, no. And at first, I remember thinking, oh, well, you're not ambitious then. Most lawyers that I know, everyone wants to make partner. And then he explained, I know that with making partner, I would have to make sacrifices from, a family perspective, and I'm not prepared to do that. And when he explained, I was like, oh my gosh, you're so self-aware. So I think you need to have that self-awareness to understand what type of person are you. For some people, they're just happy to come in, cash their check, go home. And as long as they've got enough time to, take their holidays and spend time with family, they're good. And that to them is success. So don't always just chase the bag, because I think sometimes we're encouraged to do so, particularly when you're coming from those lower socioeconomic backgrounds that we're coming from. I I was born in Uganda, came over here with my family as refugees, and grew up in council housing. And I remember I distinctly remember telling my mum that I wanted to go and do languages, and she was like, "What?" She was like, "No, no, no, you have to do those traditional routes. You have to be a doctor. You have to try and be a lawyer," because from her perspective, having come from extreme poverty, all she wanted for us, her children, was to be quote unquote successful. In her mind, that was, a high flying, high paying job. Obviously, doing languages has worked out for me. But sometimes when we come from certain backgrounds where there's pressure to earn money to be able to not only support ourselves but support our families, and in some cases like ours, like my family, supporting people back home with school fees. So there is often that pressure. So I think taking the time to really think and understand, okay, is this what I want? Do I want to be a leader? Is that something that I want to do? If yes, great, go at it with all your heart and mind. But if not, then think about what a good life looks for you, what a balanced life looks for you, and be content with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so true, so true. So Faith, we asked at the start, what does power in progress look like for underrepresented talent? What does power in progress look like for you personally?
For me, I think it's getting or hearing the stories that come out, the impact that what we're doing has on our community. That gives me the joy and the energy and the boost that I need to keep going. Because it's not easy, I think so. There are days I wake up and I kind of long for being an employee again, because as an employee, you can shut off to a degree. You work your 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Your weekends are yours. But as an entrepreneur, business owner, someone that's trying to move the needle or trying to do something big and that's never been done before, your brain's always on. You're always thinking. You're always even when you're on holiday, you're not fully relaxed or switched off. And that's, I think, not often talked about enough. So people see, the kind of flashy entrepreneurs on Instagram or influencers or whatever, and they think, oh, that's a great lifestyle, not realizing that actually there's a lot that has to go on in the mind. And there's a lot of pressure beyond kind of what you see on your social media screens.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing. Because as well as kind of wanting to give people insights and ideas around how to power progress, it's important to be reminded that we are all on a journey, and we're all trying to progress in some way, shape, or form. And it's, as you say, it's easy to look at people and think, oh, wow, they've made it, they've done it. But actually, we don't know kind of where they're trying to get to, what barriers they're facing, what support they need. And it links to what you're saying as well, the need for more and more dialogue and support to kind of, as you said, move forward together. And this is not just about one or two, this is about really transforming. And I always talk about how we transform and shape the future of leadership. That's really important, and how we can do that. Faith, where can people find you if they're interested in the We Rise In members club, the We Rise In program? How do they kind of get more information?
Best way to find us is via our website. So that's www.werising.co.uk. We are also on socials. So on Instagram, we're rise.members.club and we.rise.in. And we're also on LinkedIn as well. So if you just search for We Rise In, if you're looking for professional training and development, or Rise Members Club, if you're looking for a place to work, to connect, and to collaborate with people from our community.
Yeah, I would recommend do check out Faith. If you are looking for programs to support the work you're doing, do check it out, because as I've said, I've come out of these sessions as a facilitator feeling empowered, just meeting the many different people. So, and it is a really great way to connect. So please do. Faith, it's been a real pleasure as always talking with you, hearing some of your insights. I look forward to connecting with you soon again. Any final thoughts before we close off today?
No, really. I think we've said it all. I'm looking forward to hearing some of the other interviews.
Definitely, definitely. Well, it has been a real pleasure. We'll be back with another episode very soon. But keep powering your progress wherever you are. Keep moving forward, and we will connect again soon. But for now, take care. Bye bye.